The Mesa Chamber of Commerce Inside Business Podcast brings you a unique view of Mesa through its vibrant business community and the subjects that are important. The podcast is produced in the Mesa Chamber of Commerce Media Studio, sponsored by the University of Phoenix. Our podcast is hosted by Mesa Chamber of Commerce CEO Sally Harrison. Please enjoy this episode of the Mesa Chamber Inside Business Podcast.
Hey everybody, it is Bob Nelson, the Director of Communications here at the Mesa Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to the Inside Business Podcast. Today we have a fantastic guest. Gina Van Luven is joining us, and she is an international wellness speaker, author, and board-certified health coach, and she's done that for almost 2 decades. She is the creator of several self-help programs and the best-selling author of Nutrition for Success, How to Maximize Performance in All Areas of Life, and I'd rather scrub toilets than cook. Tips for getting in and out of the kitchen quickly. We're going to talk about that. All right. She is also the owner of Prime. Is it Prime 4 Hydration?
Prime IV.
Prime High. See, it's all important here. Prime IV Hydration and Wellness Spa in Mesa, Arizona. We're going to talk a lot about that today. So, having overcome several health issues using healthy food and alternative treatments, Gina felt empowered to support others in their journey towards health and well-being. She believes that while you may have been handed a specific set of cards, how you play them is entirely up to you. Life is full of twists and turns, but when you have the right tools, you can navigate them with ease and grace. Welcome, Gina.
Thank you.
So let's start with you, because it's always, we always like to hear the people's story. So obviously I just read some stuff, but let's hear it from you. Tell us a little bit about you.
Oh, goodness. Well, I've done a lot of different things over my career. And in addition to owning a health coaching practice for almost 2 decades, as you said, I've worked for small, medium, and large corporations. I've been at director level positions. I worked as director of nutrition for a couple of supplement companies. And so I've done a lot of different things, but I'll tell you, this is the most challenging thing I have ever done, opening a brick and mortar. It's very, very different.
So let's transition a little bit into that.
Okay.
So you are opening in a company called Prime IV Hydration and Wellness.
Yes.
So tell us the 50,000 foot overview on that.
Yes, so it's a fairly new company that started a few years ago in Colorado Springs, and it's a franchise. So I own one of the many franchises that are cropping up. And IV therapy is really gaining popularity. This is something that I started doing many years ago in my quest for health and wellness and overcoming the myriad of health issues that I had. I would do IV treatments here and there. But then last year, I started doing regular IV treatments just for prevention and making sure that I would stay healthy. I didn't want to get sick, the C word and or the flu
Truth.
Or anything like that. Yeah. And so I thought, I really want to stay on top of this. So I enrolled in a membership in Prime IV Hydration and Wellness. And I just love the way it made me feel. And I started thinking, geez, this is something that I could really get behind. And so I decided to look into opening one here, and we went to Colorado Springs for a discovery day. I was really impressed with the leadership, with the systems that they had in place, with the quality of their nutrients and how specific they were. Like, we are 797 compliant. We use only 503B compliant nutrients, which probably doesn't really mean anything to your audience, but it's very, very important, I'll tell you that. And so I was just really impressed. My husband was really impressed, and we thought, let's do this.
So let's talk a little bit about IV, right? Because, I think everybody has sort of a preordained vision of what an IV is, and you guys really are kind of expanding not just the access to the idea of IV, but really what it can do for you in your health. So talk a little bit about what services you offer.
Yeah, well, I'll address the IV part first. And it seems like a very clinical thing, which it has been traditionally. So, what we're doing is taking this clinical experience and putting it into a spa like experience. And that was the kicker for me is, I can go to a doctor and get an IV, but when you're sitting in a zero gravity massage chair, just zenning out for a little while, it's a very different experience than just going into a clinic and the white walls and just getting poked and sitting there and waiting for it to be done. So, very different experience. So, you get that spa like environment and you feel really good when you walk out versus, oh gosh, I just got this thing and I don't know how I feel about that and I don't want to get it done again. This is, hey, when can I come back again? And so the type of services we offer, obviously the IV therapies, we have a variety of different IV cocktails and completely customizable. So that's one thing that makes us different is we compound all of our bags. So completely customizable, even though we have predetermined recipes, you can customize your own cocktail, if you will. We also provide injections, so like B12 is very common, vitamin D. We know we need to get that extra vitamin D, even though we live here in Arizona, and people think, oh yes, I'm getting all the sun. I have a tan. That's actually worse for your vitamin D synthesis if you have darker skin. You get more vitamin D synthesis when you have lighter skin. So getting that vitamin D injection, we do lipoline. We will be offering peptide therapy. Peptides, people either know or not know what that is, but basically they're amino acids, so proteins that are messengers and tell your body to do specific things. So just keeping it very simple. And so it's specific therapy to tell your body to do specific things, whether that's, hey, let's build some muscle and gain strength, or let's drop some weight, or let's help your immune system. That's what peptide therapy does. And then we'll also be offering some DNA testing so that you can see what type of nutrients or what type of, I should say, like gene mutations you might have that could keep you from uptaking certain nutrients or make you susceptible to having too much of a certain nutrient. So I think that's a pretty cool service. And then we have hydration drops that you can add into your water that make them taste lovely. They're all natural. And plus they give you those electrolytes that you need in between your IV treatments. So lots of fun stuff.
So, and you've touched on some of this already in basically what you've said, but kind of how will your Prime IV Hydration and Wellness Center, spa, let me be clear. How do you differentiate that from other IV providers?
Yeah, so one of the things I mentioned was the custom compounding. I referenced the 503B compliant nutrients earlier and that we are 797 compliant. So this is not a requirement. If you go to some locations or even if an accident happens and you have a paramedic that rolls up, they're building their IVs right on the spot, like on a desk, for example, and they try to be as clean as possible, but we have a little mini clean room where we prepare our nutrients. So we really go to an extra extent to make sure that you are as safe as possible when getting your IV treatments. We don't want any contamination or anything like that. So we go to that extra step to make sure that everything is nice and clean and safe. We also have this spa-like environment, as I mentioned. So the moment you walk in, what you smell, what you hear, what you see, everything speaks spa. Like you are in a very relaxing environment, and we want you to feel that all the way through your drip and then walking back out again and thinking, when can I come back? Because this is an amazing experience. It's like a 1 hour vacation, and we sell that concept of this 1 hour vacation that you can just relax and let all of those stressful things go away. I'll tell you, I need one of those right now.
Yeah, it sounds pretty appealing to me too.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about now. You've touched on the fact that obviously there's more that's going to be happening with your business than just the IV drip.
Mm-hmm.
But let's touch on that a little bit because it does seem to be like that's the core. How can people how can it help people? What can they look forward to as part of this?
Yeah, there's so many things. I'll try to kind of distill it. One of the big things lately is weight loss. People want to find some way to make their physique look amazing, and so we have some products for that as well to help with metabolism and blood sugar. I mentioned peptide therapy and building muscle tissue. There's one thing to lose weight, it's another thing to actually build muscle, and that's really what you want to do, is not just lose weight but build muscle in the process. And so peptides can help with that, as well as the general IV therapy. We have IV therapy for sunburns or just sun exposure when you get that heat exhaustion. It's better to be proactive and do something like that before you know you're going to be out in the sun all day, or take those hydration drops with you. But if you have that heat exhaustion feeling, going in for a drip is really, really important. You want to replenish yourself because you've just depleted, right? So you want to replenish yourself. Same with hangovers. You want to come in.
That was the interesting one. I saw that, and I was like, oh, I bet people would gravitate to that.
Yeah, well, and as I'm sure most people know, alcohol really negatively impacts the liver. It's dehydrating and it impacts the liver. So we call it the after party. There's also the resurrection. We've got 2 drips that have slightly different. One has more ingredients than the other one.
Sure.
That help you to regenerate your liver, protect your liver, and to rehydrate you so that you don't have that nasty hangover effect. We also have ones for immune support, detoxification, for beauty, hair, skin, and nails. And guys think, oh, that's just for the ladies. No, it's for the men too. Everybody needs to have collagen production and just helping your body to be able to regenerate. And that's really what, if you think of how somebody looks on the outside and that regenerative process, that's happening on the inside. It's really what the reflection is the outside, but that's what's happening on the inside is reflected on the outside. So if guys feel like, oh, that's just for women, no, the men need it too. It's what's going on inside.
So if you're going a holiday weekend, you're going to go out to the lake, or you're going to go camping, and you know you're going to be out in the sun, it's a great way to kind of proactively engage ahead of time,
for sure,
before you go.
And another good one is jet lag. So I prefer to go get my drip before I fly, and then I preclude having jet lag to begin with. But you can do it reactively when you come home and you just feel that lethargy and just not feeling quite right. You can go in for a jet lag drip. But again, I prefer to do it before as a proactive measure.
So how does the IV therapy differ from, say, just having the little pill guy and taking supplements and that kind of thing?
Great question. And I do believe in supplements. I think they're a gap filler. So if you think of food, we get nutrients from our food, right? But our soil's been depleted. They keep growing on the same soil, so you just don't get all the nutrients from that. We have food that's shipped from other states. And like New Zealand apples, it seems lovely and great, but how long did it take those apples to get to your mouth?
From New Zealand.
Right, and that could be weeks, it could be months. In some cases, it's years because they store them in big containers. So the bottom line is you lose nutritive value in your food. If you're growing your own food, fantastic. You are in the best situation to get the most out of your food. But there's also the digestion piece. So when you're taking supplements or food, you have to go through that digestive process, right? And depending on how well your digestion works is how much you're going to uptake. You're going to uptake more probably with food, but supplements are designed so that you can uptake more depending on the type of supplement that it is. And I don't want to get down a rabbit hole with supplements. If we have time, we can talk about that.
Sure.
But
we can come back.
We can come back to that. But if with supplements, you're lucky to get 10 to 20% of the value of that supplement. That's why sometimes you see like a massive amount. You're like, why am I getting 200% of the RDA? And it's because they're putting an overage in there, hoping that your body will then uptake a little bit more. With IV therapy, you're getting 100% of those nutrients because they're delivered right to your bloodstream. So your body can actually utilize what you're getting, what you're uptaking, or what you're putting in your body, I should say. So when you take supplements, you're just getting like 10 to 20%, and with IV therapy, you're getting 100%. So if you can do IV therapy at least once a month, you're really kind of trying to build that deficit up in your body versus just constantly being in a deficit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense.
And if I can say one more thing about that, if you think of water here in Arizona, if you set a cup of water out, there's going to be that condensation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And over time, if you were to do the lapse, what do you call that?
Time
Elapse,
lapse. Mm-hmm.
you would see the water, even though you're not touching it, nobody's drinking it, it would go down and down
Sure.
and down,
Mm-hmm.
keep evaporating. And that's what happens with us with our nutrients. That's why you eat, you replenish, right? But if you're already at a deficit and you keep adding 1 drop of water, and 1 drop of water or 2 drops of water are being evaporated and you're only putting 1 drop in, you keep getting more and more depleted over time. And that's when we end up sick, right? Is that
Mm-hmm. Sure.
that depletion has happened so much so that there's nothing left in the glass. And so with IV hydration therapy, you can start to add more drops back into that cup so that you create a balance of having all of what you need versus being in depletion. Does that make
Makes
more
perfect sense.
Okay.
No, it makes perfect sense. So, starting to transition a little bit into more of the actual spa, walk-ins.
Yes,
will be okay?
We can, as long as there's availability. So it's a possibility somebody could walk in and we can't get them in. And part of the reason for that is we only have so many chairs of our zero gravity massage chairs, and we want to make sure that they have a consultation. So every person who walks in the door gets a health history, basically, and a consultation to make sure that they're a good fit for IV therapy, and making sure that they choose the right drip for them. So they'll get to talk with one of our infusion specialists and have that opportunity. So we can sometimes accommodate walk-ins, but it's always better to schedule an appointment.
And can people, I don't necessarily want to say subscribe, but is there a way for them like to be a member, or is it kind of just, hey, I'm going to call you and set an appointment and then we're going to...
You can do both. So you can do one-offs every once in a while. It costs more that way when
Sure.
you do that. When you do a
Makes
membership, it brings the cost down quite a bit, and then you get access to our zero gravity massage chairs, free oxygen therapy, and the VIP benefits when you become a monthly member. And that's what I do. I've been doing that for over a year now, and I enjoy being able to make sure I get that one, at least one. But I can have more than one if I want. You can always add on to your membership, but it's just something that's kind of like when you do a massage membership. Mm-hmm. You look forward to, okay, there's that 1 hour that I get to myself. It's the same type of thing. I have that 1 hour and I know I'm doing something really good for my body.
So let's talk about the store. So you are opening up, mm-hmm. and share the details of that with everybody.
Yes, so I am very excited to finally be in this process after almost a year now that I did the discovery in Colorado Springs. And so we are set to soft open on September 21st and grand open on September 29th. So during that soft open period, we're kind of practicing our systems, and we're not practicing the IV part. They all have that down pat. But the actual systems and everything, it takes practice.
So where is it located?
It is located at 2025 North Power Road. That's on the northeast corner of Power and McKellips. We're kind of facing the McKellips side, so we're next to Bike Masters, and there's a Canyon Dentistry right next to us, and it's Suite 106. And it's in a beautiful location.
Power and
McKellips.
McKellips. You're nearby several chamber members right there at Power and McKellips. Yeah.
Convenient.
So soft opening, you said on the 21st of September.
Mm-hmm.
Grand opening on the 28th.
29th.
29th. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure there's a ribbon cutting scheduled.
There is. Okay. At 9:15 is a ribbon cutting.
So everybody can be there. Mm-hmm. How do people get a hold of you?
You can go to primevhydration.com and look for our location. It'll be listed as Northeast Mesa. We're Northeast Mesa, Red Mountain, in that area. And then our phone number is 480-992-4202.
She had that memorized, by the way. I just want to make sure everybody knows that. So what else would you like to talk about in relation to the idea of IV hydration? Because I think this is a new, I don't know necessarily new, but this is certainly something that I think has come to the public eye.
It's
more.
Gaining awareness.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there's a lot of questions that people would have. So what kind of questions have you gotten from people about it?
Honestly, I don't really get too many questions other than what will it do for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say on that note that it's not a one and done. It's not like you go to the gym and you work out and then, okay, I'll come back in a few months.
Right.
It's something that should be done on a regular basis, just like eating or sleeping or brushing your teeth or anything that you do to manage your well-being. It needs to be done consistently. And I maybe whether or not it's going to hurt, that might be something that might come up. And I'm a needle phobe, so this is a big deal, and people think it's funny that I'm opening an IV clinic, which it is kind of funny.
There's an irony to that.
Yeah, there's an irony to that. But I've done acupuncture for years as well. Much smaller needle, very different. But I had trauma as a child with getting blood tests done, and so I just have like needle phobia. But I use a smaller needle, so it just takes me a little bit longer to drip than the average person, which I'm totally fine with. It just means that I can chill out for a little bit longer. Yep,
for longer.
Right. Doesn't bother me any. And it's just really that, for me, the instant poke, right at the beginning,
sure.
at the pinch, and then I'm fine. Once it's in, I'm totally fine.
So let's actually talk about some of the other services, because obviously the name has IV in it, but there's other stuff that you do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So talk about some of that stuff.
Well, with the injection therapy, I grew up knowing several people who needed to get regular B12 shots, and I always thought, oh, that's interesting, and really not much more about it than that, thinking, oh, well, there's just something wrong with this person and they need B12. And it's not that there's something wrong or right or anything like that, but genetically speaking, a lot of people have it's called MTHFR. It stands for methylation. Their gene, the gene that does that function, doesn't do that function properly, and so what they can't do is methylate. And what methylation is the conversion of B12 to a usable form. So when you eat or you take a supplement that's not methylated, your body has to do this conversion to make it usable. And B12 does a myriad of things for the human body, but the thing that it's known for is energy. That's what it's known for, ATP production. But again, it helps your body do so many different things, but it's known for energy. And when people have fatigue, sometimes it's because they're not methylating B12. And so we offer methylated B12 injections so that you can make sure that you're getting the B vitamins so that you have energy. So like for me, for example, I actually don't have that gene mutation, but I have other mutations that still cause me to not methylate properly. And so I get my B12 shots. If I don't get that second one, I can tell.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very keenly aware of my body, having gone through all of these health issues and then getting healthy. My warning systems are like right on point.
Absolutely.
So I can tell when I don't have my B12 shot and when I do. So it lasts a couple of weeks for me. And so if I get the two, I've got my whole month's worth, right? Yeah,
sure.
But if I only get the one, then I can tell
later
on. I can tell. So that's a big one. And I mentioned vitamin D earlier, just making sure, especially now that we're going to start getting into the cooler weather and cold and flu season, is making sure you have good levels of vitamin D. And when you get a blood test, can I talk about this just a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely.
When you get a blood test, you're either in or out of the norm, right? And
right.
Your doctor will not say anything unless you're out of that normal range. But if you're nearing the end of that low range, you could still be at risk if you're in that low range. So most naturopathic doctors will say they like to see you at like 60 to 80, whereas the norm is like 25 to 60 in some cases, or 25 to 80. They've been changing it up a little bit. You'll see some of the blood tests are starting to creep up and make it a little bit longer range. But they like to see, naturopaths usually like to see around 60 to 80 nanograms per milliliter. And most people are like 25, 30, 35, and that just opens you up for flu and
stuff.
cold time.
All kinds of icky stuff.
Icky stuff. So getting those vitamin D injections as well can help you out. You can take supplements as well, but they're fat soluble, so they stay in the body longer than water soluble. Anything that's water soluble, like your B vitamins, C vitamins, you just pass them out. If you take too much of them, your body just excretes them.
Yeah, doesn't need them in the moment.
Whereas fat soluble, like A, E, D, that stays in your fat cells. So you don't want to have too much of that. You don't want to overdose. So it's good to get a test. I like to do it a couple times a year, see what my vitamin D levels are, especially going into cold and flu season. And then that way you can adjust accordingly.
That makes sense. So, Gina, thanks so much for joining us. One more time, how can people get a hold of you?
You can go to primevhydration.com, look for Northeast Mesa, or our phone number 480-992-4202.
And the store will be located at?
2025 North Power Road, Suite 106 in Mesa.
So we're looking forward to seeing everybody on the 29th. If I say it slow enough, they coach me.
9 in the morning.
On the 29th, we're looking forward to seeing you. Or if you want, take advantage of the soft opening on the 21st. And get yourself in there and find out all of the fantastic things that Gina is investing in. And hopefully Gina will be back at some point, and we'll do a follow-up, and we'll talk some more about some of these subjects.
I'll be more awake then.
Right? I know, right? Gina, thanks again for joining us here
so
on the Inside Business Podcast. I have been your host, Bob Nelson, Director of Communications for the Mesa Chamber of Commerce. Visit us online at mesachamber.org, and we'd love to have you as a member, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye!
This has been a Mesa Chamber of Commerce Inside Business Podcast. You can find all podcast episodes at iTunes, Spotify, or your own favorite podcast website. You can also find them online at mesachamber.org. Content of this podcast is copyright the Mesa Chamber of Commerce, unless otherwise noted.